8 minutes late, but that is okay.
Are we live?
Not yet. We are live.
Yay.
We are 8 minutes late, but that is okay. You do not have to be perfect here. And sometimes things happen, and we're just excited to be here. I'm Amanda Patterson, and this is, and we are excited today to be talking about the myths of building a smart practice. This is something that Rachel and I put together. We're excited to be here. And like always, if you have questions for us, we're going to be answering your questions in real time. And so comments below, if you're watching this on a replay, just be sure to comment, because we'll go back and answer your questions, or we may answer them in future live videos that we have. So we're just excited to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So today, as Amanda said, we're going to talk about myths. And we're going to have a conversation about myths because there are so many myths that come up with private practice. So one of the biggest ones that we hear a lot is basically, if you build it, they will come. So if you hang your shingle and you open your practice, as a therapist, the clients are just going to come to you. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. No matter who you are, what your name is, how long you've lived in the city. I think I was one of the people that believed that myth, Amanda. So I thought, not only was I born and raised in West Palm Beach, but I knew like probably 50% of all the physicians. I was in a building with the largest OBGYN practice in Palm Beach County, and knew probably grew up with most of the doctors' children, right, that were there. And I thought, no brainer, I'm going to be full in a week. Didn't happen.
Dun, dun, dun. And then what happened?
It didn't happen. I did continue going up. I started making time to meet with them, talking to them about, what I was doing. And, I know we're not talking about solutions on this, but it didn't happen. There was a lot more that I needed to do to get to that point.
Yeah, I think like for a lot of people, it's like, okay, let's rent an office, right? Like, let me rent my office, let me put my degree up, and then the calls are just going to start coming in because I'm licensed, because I specialize in this specific thing. Like, that's what I hear so many times, is like specialize, specialize, specialize. It's like, that's great. You can specialize all you want, but that's not going to really get you phone calls, right? Just specializing isn't going to get you phone calls.
Right. I mean, I wish it would. I specialize in sex and relationships. I thought, biggest OBGYN, practice in Palm Beach County. I'm so golden. Same building.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because, like, along with that is that basically people also think like, I'm just going to build up a practice, and I'm going to start, and within a month I'm going to be full, because that's, I've been doing some research, I've been listening to maybe some podcasts, I've been doing, the things that I need to do in order to have my office space. Like, I know we keep like harping on this, like, if you build it, they will come kind of thing, but just having the office space really isn't going to be enough.
Yeah, you'll likely get some calls, right? You'll get some referrals, people, and, people will Google and find you at some point, but that's another thing, you have to be on there. But it's not just going to happen. You can't just hang a shingle and expect to, get clients right away and be full. So there's really an art to doing that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that I loved what you said, is that you may get a call or two, right? Like your mom's cousin's brother or sister might send you a referral because you happen to be in the same town. But, without systems in place to consistently get phone calls or emails or appointment requests on a regular basis, your business really isn't going to thrive. Like, you will be able to grow maybe it'll take a long period of time, sort of pulling referrals from different places, but it's going to be hard for you to build consistently and have all the systems in place that's necessary for you to go ahead and really build out a practice that's going to, be smart and successful.
Absolutely. And I think, similarly, like, another myth, but that plays into this, right? It's sort of the same one, but a little different, is that, you're going to walk in and hang your shingle in private practice and you're just going to, make over six figures right away. That you're just
Yeah,
going
that's where we talked about. So many people like find that like six figure is golden, whether you gross six figures or you net six figures, right? Like that's a very different conversation, right? Like a lot of practices gross six figures. I did math the other day, and then somebody in the comments was like, your math is wrong. Probably. Okay. So if anybody watched that one, sure, my math might have been wrong, but six figures a month, it's about 9,000, or six figures a year is about 9,000 a month, 10,000, 9 to 10, $1,000 a month, a gross. That's, if you're full time, sure, you can get that. Netting six figures starts to look different, right? That's like, then the next question that people have is like, how do I start netting six figures? How do I not just bring in, $10,000 a month, but like, how do I take home $10,000 a month? And how do I really live off of that?
And I think that's something, I'm glad you said that at the end, because I think there's a lot of people that don't know the difference, right? Grossing means that's how much money comes in, right? You collect that much without any overhead. Whether, even if you're in an online practice, right? You have some overhead. You have a, platform fee, if you have a platform, a phone, you have internet, those are all business expenses. So once you take those out, that's your net.
Yeah. And so I think you're right. Like, and there's usually like, I see two lines of people. People are like, I want to make six figures my first year in private practice, but they don't really have a clear vision of how that's going to look. And then I see the other half of the people who are like, didn't learn anything in grad school, weren't taught about private practice, and are scared to charge $80 a session, right? So I see kind of like, that's usually like, falls within two groups. So if you're watching this, let us know where you fall. Comment below. Let us know, like, yes, I want to make six figures, in my first year, whether that's gross or net. Or let us know, like, no, I'm scared to ask for my full rate, whatever that full rate is. We'd love to hear from you.
So there's a lot of myths, and of course these aren't the only two, right? But these are two pretty big ones that I hear a lot. And I've been working with people building practices for, gosh, over 12 years now. And I've heard these a lot. So, we're here to debunk, we're going to debunk those for you. Not now.
Not now. So we're excited. We're going to be doing a webinar on June 1st from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. We're really going to get in the nuts and bolts. We're going to be going over until our webinar over the next 4 weeks, doing these, live talks. We're going to be answering your questions, and we're going to take everything that is talked about during these talks and we put together a really great webinar. And we're going to debunk these myths for you. We're going to talk about what you need in order to really create that smart practice, the foundations that you need. I'm going to be going over a SWOT analysis. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we're going to be talking about business goals and some really exciting ways to really build your business. And Rachel, what will you be talking about?
I'm going to talk about a formula that's going to help set you up for the future that you want financially. And I'm going to help you create a financial plan that will lead to, knowing how much you have to work to get what you want, how much you want for the life that you want to live, and what's important to you. So we're going to come up with a whole financial goals and a financial plan to get you to that place.
So for those of you who have been watching these lives with Rachel and I over the past, has it been 3 weeks, 4 weeks? However, I think this is the fourth week we've been doing it. Yeah. So Rachel and I are planners by nature, right? And so we just, how fitting was it for us to decide, like, no, we're going to, help people create a plan for themselves, because without a plan, I think, just like with therapy and treatment, you're not really going to get very far. You're going to be blowing in the wind, both clinically and within your business, right? And so I think like having a plan both around your business and finances is really going to be important. So we're really going to be debunking this myth, that if you put your shingle up, if you put your degree up, if you get an office, even if you niche. I mean, I know we talked last week, now I've like really turned around with time, everybody, because of this quarantine. So we talked about marketing and niching and the importance of niching, but niching is not going to be enough, right? So just because you have a niche and just because you have maybe created an Instagram that you are this specialty does not mean that people are going to call, or that they're going to refer their friends, or that you're going to, again, have those systems in place around this.
And even if people do call, so let's say you don't have to do much to market and they call, you still need to understand how to keep track of payments, how much you need to live. You still need to work on a budget and a financial plan, because without doing that, you're going to continue to spin your wheels, right? So what's your end goal here? How many hours a week do you really want to work, right? Because you don't have to work 40 hours a week to get to where you want. I can promise you that. So we're going to help you figure all of these things out and know at least what to look at and how to create that plan for yourself.
I'm just going to jump on and see, because we asked for questions, to see if anybody has any questions for us. We'll go on. It's always funny to go back and watch these videos and see. So somebody is having a webinar about growing a telehealth practice would be great. So something that we can definitely consider. We're going to be planning a couple of things for this group. And so, I know that telehealth is on people's minds right now. So I think that, we can add that, and at least a part of, growing a telehealth practice can be a part of our webinar. Because if you jump on our webinar, right, and we're going to come up with some goals. Maybe your goal could be how to build a telehealth practice, and I'll really show you how to identify what your goals will be, doing what we call as a SWOT analysis. It's something I know there are some people in here who have sat down and done a form of this in person. I really enjoy this, so I picked this topic to do. I really wanted to serve our community, and one way we can serve the community, I've always been a believer that you need to have a plan. Or you were going to talk? Yeah, go. Yeah, no.
So I wanted to also respond and say that, building a telehealth practice, and there is a short video that I actually posted, and I don't know if it's still pinned to the top, but we can go back and do that again, on how to quickly start your online practice, right? What do you need? But nothing that we're talking about in this webinar is not applicable to online. It's online or in person. They're virtually the same types of practice, minus having a location, right? I mean, the locations are different. So everything we're going to teach you in terms of how to plan financially, how to be prepared, how to get clients, all those things throughout our Facebook Lives and our additional trainings that we're going to do are applicable. And we will be speaking specifically to online therapy as well. Like, we will tease the two out when there are differences.
So I think it's so funny, good word, I guess, is like, it's kind of the same idea as everybody is rushing to brand themselves as a telehealth therapist or an online counselor. They put this on their website. They put this on their, marketing materials, right? But are clients calling, and do you have, again, the systems in place? And do you have clear, though you've maybe put it on your website, are people Googling, online counseling in your area and finding you? These are questions to ask yourself. Like, are my phones ringing? I will say that Friday was technically May 1st, but in my group practice, we booked 9 new intakes today. Okay, so we booked 9 new people today. I think because we put all of those things in place so people could start finding us on Google. I'm a little, again, to use the word funny like that, like I'm always Googling like my area, incognito, obviously, to try to find out, like, can my practice be found, right? And so you have to ask yourself, can you be found? If you can't be found, that's a problem. You need to be found.
Absolutely, I agree. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's other questions, but we are definitely we can do one specifically for telehealth as well. But I promise you that everything we're going to be doing is applicable.
How do you think, Rachel, that the myth of, like, if you say you're a telehealth therapist, or you build your shingle that you're a telehealth therapist, like, how is that a myth? Like, how are people going to see that?
Well, at a time like this, that you're going to just start to grow, right? Because everybody's doing something online. I think that's a myth too. Just because we're moving online doesn't mean people are going to find you. Same way as when you're in an office, you have to do things to make your name stand out. Like you said, Amanda, to make you be found. You know, it's really important.
Yeah, I think that I one of the questions anytime people want to start a practice or they have an idea, even if it's not starting a practice, maybe something along the lines of starting practice or want to do consulting, my first question is always, where are you going to get your clients?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, great. Like, you build a beautiful office, do your online practice, but like, how are your clients going to get to you? It's one of the reasons why I think really people decide to take insurance, because that's a quick way to get clients. I think there's other ways you can quickly get clients, and long-term strategy. I think when we talk about things like we're going to be doing business planning at some points, like there's long-term and short-term goals, right? And so you don't want to just have you don't want to have, it's not a get rich quick scheme, right? Like, how can you start getting so many calls every single day? Another question like people have is like, how can I start getting the right calls to my practice? How can I start getting the my ideal client to call me, right? That's another thing. Like, these are the sort of like the caveats to the myth. Like, sure, you can build your shingle, but like, are people going to be calling you? Are your ideal clients going to be calling you? Are they going to be satisfied with their services? Like, all of these kinds of things that you really want to ask yourself, because Rachel and I want to be here to help support you during that process, right? Whether you are brand new building a practice or you've been in practice and it's really not quite working. I know that's also a very common thing. Like, people start practices and they're not where they want to be. So I really want you to ask yourself, like, are you where you want to be?
And I think, going back to the online thing as well, like, I think, what you said touched on this a little bit too, is that, there are different things that will make you successful financially, if that's what we're talking about, success financially, right? And we talk about our bills. And so a lot of people think, okay, online is less expensive, right? The difference, you don't have to pay an office, like a rent, right? But it also depends how you set yourself up. So for myself, for example, and I run a group practice like Amanda does, I bought a space. So while I am paying into this space now, right, it will ultimately not cost me any money and instead probably make me at least $100,000, right? Because when I sell it, I will get back everything I've paid into it and then some, right? Because it was a smart investment the way that I did it. Now, I was lucky. I've learned about real estate my whole life. So I was able, my family's in real estate. So I was able to know when I saw a good deal that it was a good deal and how that could impact me, right? So I think you need to look at a lot of different factors when you're figuring out what's the right platform for you. Is it about finances? And if so, let's make sure that we're really comparing apples to apples here.
Yep. So for those of you watching, if again, I want to hear from you, like, are you looking to build a 6-figure practice? Are you looking to do a telehealth practice? Like, we want to hear from you. We are, putting together different resources for this group. We want to know what you need. Like, Rachel and I have our own ideas, right? Like, we have our own ideas of how we built our practices, how we've, debunked these myths, how we have sort of worked in our own framework, right? But what I also know I'm a big supporter of is like knowing what your personal process is, your journey is, and how your journey may look different than our journey. And so we want to hear from you. Like, if listen, we have 13,000 members. If 6,500 of you come on and say yes, like, make the webinar all about telehealth, then we may consider shifting and making our messaging about that. So we want to hear, like, what is it that you need help with? If you have thought about hanging your shingle, if you've thought about renting an office space or renting space from somebody, but you don't know where to start, you don't know where to get your website, you don't know how to make a plan, you don't know how to make a business plan, you don't know how to make a financial plan, you don't know phone systems, electronic health records, you don't know any of these kinds of things, like, we want to hear that, and we want to help you through this process, right? Like, we want to give you the resources, and not just like our ideas, but like the resources that are really out there that can help you to go beyond just building it and they will come. Really knowing what you're building and being mindful, I think, is a good word.
Yeah, mindful, conscious. I think that's all really important. And I think that I always hear, and I know Amanda, we talk about this a lot, but like build your 6-figure practice. And I'm like, I want to make sure you know that we don't mean just $100,000. We mean multi 6-figure practice, right? It's easy to build a 6-figure practice. We want to teach you how you can, again, whatever you need to live and to be happy, right? If you need less or if you need more, we can get you to that point. So by busting these myths, which we're going to do in our webinar, and teaching you all the things that you need to do, we hope to get you to that place.
I really liked what you said, Rachel, because I think that, you know, everybody's own personal circumstances really impact their finances, right? Like I'm excited to see you like do this financial planning piece, one, because that is just like an interest of mine, but I think it's really something that a lot of people like are scared of, right? They're scared of finances. They don't want to talk about finances. They don't want to process finances. They don't want to look at what it costs to run a practice, and they don't necessarily, you know, always want to look at like what their profit and loss is. They don't want to look at what does it cost them to get leads, what does it cost them, you know, to market their practice, you know, should they be putting more money into one part of their practice versus another part of their practice. I think like that's, you know, all of that is really important. Rachel, what makes you passionate about finances?
You know, I enjoy looking at the numbers. I used to be terrified of it. You know, like you said, like first I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Right. But it's when I was in grad school. I'm like, how am I going to figure this out? Then I started learning about it and I'm like, this is really cool. Like, and it's exciting, especially when you see yourself making money. You know, I remember, you know, when I first made an investment in things, right? Because I didn't do that at the beginning. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much money. And then I realized I put in that money to make triple and sometimes quadruple. Like you need to spend money to make money. And it's just exciting to see yourself being successful in that way and learning how to read the numbers and understand them. And, you know, I don't know. At first I was terrified and now I love it.
Yep. So we're hoping to maybe move people from terrified to loving finances. I think that when you do build a smart practice, that's one part of it. Okay, I'm going to check for any questions and then we'll see where we're at. Sure, there'll be questions on the repeats. It's usually try to go back and answer all of those questions. So again, if you're watching this on the replay, we will answer your questions for you there. Transition from being a group practice to your own. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Michael Berger. How do you transition from being a group practice to your own? So do you want to jump on that, Rachel?
Sure. So I think what you're saying is you're part of a group practice and you'd like to go out on your own. And so it's the same thing as is almost the same thing as starting fresh, just not getting your name known and you know, if you've already started to do that, right? You're gonna have to figure out how do you want to provide services? Do you want to do that in person? Do you want to do that online? You need to figure out what your contract and agreement was with the group practice that you're part of right now, see what that means for you moving forward, and figure out, you know, what location, again, if it's in person, where do you want to be in the same area? And again, go back to your contract with the group practice. And then put all of these things in place that we're going to be talking to you about because what you're doing is you've started, I don't know if you're an independent contractor or an employee right now, but regardless, you have started as part of something. So the branding is likely a branding under, like for Amanda's, you know, practices caring therapists of Broward, but also expanding, and mine's Whole Health Psychological Center. So, you know, most of my therapists are known, their names are known, but they're known as part of Whole Health Psychological Center. So they left, right? They need to make that name and separate it from that. So that's your biggest issue. And then coming back, getting your own tax ID, figuring out if you want it to be a name of a practice, even if it's in your name. Like if I did Rachel Needle LLC, let's say, right? I still then have to go get my EIN, and there's a whole steps to doing that. And I think we've covered some in previous lives. And if you have any other questions specifically about those steps, we also did a checklist that you can check out to make sure that you're hitting all of the things that are important to get you started on your own.
I think the other thing,
sorry, myprivatepracticecollective.com, you'll see under the freebies, you'll see a lot of these things that can help you.
I actually had a conversation with one of my independent contractors, and she, I think, asked me like, this same kind of question, like, when would I do my own practice? Like, when would it make sense for me to do my own practice? And, I could have talked about the finances part at that time, because I think that's like a big one. Like, unless you're ready to track and you're ready to really like put together your piece. But what I told her, and I believe this to be true, is like, when your group practice starts getting calls for you specifically on a regular basis through whatever means that you have, like, that's a good time to start at least looking at, would this make sense for me to be on my own, right? So then at least you can say, I have made a name for myself. And then that's not the only thing that you need to do, but that was like a good jumping off point. So for those of you that are in group practices and that you're thinking about going out on your own, you need to ask yourself, like, have I been getting calls? Do people know me? Do I have a business plan? Do I know my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Do I have my financial plan ready to go? Do I know how much it's going to cost me, how much I need to live? You need to ask yourself all of these questions. If you don't have those answered, please join us on our webinar, right? But if you do have those, that would be a good point for you, because a lot of the times I think where people get stuck with group practices is that they're either paying rent or a percentage to the group practice, and they're like, what am I getting for this, right? We don't need to go into all of those details. Rachel and I are both group practice owners, so we can probably like bore you with all of that. Like, what do you get? I'm like, all this, right? But ultimately, it doesn't really come down to that. It comes down to like, will you be viable on your own? And only you can answer that by knowing if you have a financial plan, if you have all your systems in place, if you have all of your, streams of income ready to go, if you know advanced marketing strategies, if you know how to do the basics, like, do you know how to start a business? All of those things, like, you need to have all of the basics done and all the advanced strategies done, basically. So I really want you to ask yourself, do you know the basics? And do you know the beyond the basics? If you can answer yes to those questions, then yes, go out on your own. Sounds like a great idea. But if you need that support and structure for the time being until you learn all of that, then you may want to stay at your group practice.
And so in our program, we're going to help you learn how to do these things on your own. So you can start to learn these things so that you are setting yourself up for going on your own. And I think that's really important. And, Amanda, you talked about people, do you have these things in place, or do you know how to do this? I have a lot of people that probably know how, but don't want to do it on their own. Mm-hmm. So just figure out, what your goals are, and what you would spend otherwise, and weigh your options. And if you want to go out on your own, then we definitely, I support people in my own office that want to do that. We support you, and we're going to continue to help you learn how to do that.
So I think we don't have any more questions. So if anybody has questions for us, or want us to include anything in our lives, we are going to be here for the next 3 Mondays doing this sort of like long form question answer. We're going to be sharing our topic, and then on June 1st, so those of you who are catching it now, we're going to be jumping into our webinar. So we want you to sign up. We put a link there. It's June 1st from 3 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. You will get a CEU for that. So thank you, Rachel, for hooking us up with that. And we're going to be talking about, Rachel, I want you to say the topic, because you are like a superstar at saying it.
At the topic. So the business of private practice and its foundations to be successful and skyrocket your practice.
And during this webinar, it'll be Rachel and I, we're going to be giving you a lot of information, and then we're going to be debunking these myths, right? We're going to debunk this myth that all you have to do is, if you build it, they will come, and that, either you will make 100,000 in your first year by just showing up, or you will, you can't charge your rate. So we're going to be really working with you. You're going to leave there with a solid business plan, at least a mini business plan. We're not going to do the full business plan. We're going to do a mini business plan, and we're going to do a financial plan for you. So you can take that step and say, yes, like, I am ready to actually make 6 figures a year, whether you want to gross or net 6 figures. There are ways that you can do that. You can do both of those things, and we support you in that.
Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep, we'll see you next week here. We're here at 3 o'clock. We're going to be going live. Any questions you have on the replay, please ask them and we will answer that. And we hope to see you on June 1st. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.